Sources for the horse in this lecture. Energy, we first have to know what it is. Energy is the basis of all life. Without energy, we do not have the ability to drive any of the mechanisms in the body, such as reproduction, breathing, muscle contraction, heart beating, any of that. That all takes energy. So energy is the absolute basis of all life. Now the requirements for the horse for their energy can be influenced by the environment. Is it hot? Is it cold? Their gestation stage. Are they pregnant? Are they not? Are they lactating? Performance is going to make a big impact on the energy requirement for a horse. If this horse is in training every day for a competition in a couple of months, he's going to need a lot more energy than the horse that's stuffed out in the pasture. Physical condition of the horse is going to have an influence on the energy requirement. If this horse is losing weight, then he obviously needs more energy in order to maintain. And their overall health. Basically, are they able to eat correctly? Are they able to digest efficiently? Senior horses need more energy because they don't digest as efficiently. So things like that are all going to be relevant to the energy needs of the horse. So energy is measured in calories, kilocalories, and megacalories. Well, what is that? The calorie is the amount of energy required to increase the temperature of 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. Okay? So that's 1 gram of water, 1 degree Celsius. Now a kilocalorie is times 1,000, and then a megacalorie is times 1,000 of the kilocalories. So the energy is measured in calories. So when we talk about a horse's diet, we measure everything in digestible energy. Well, what is digestible energy? Digestible energy is the gross energy of the feed that you are putting into the horse minus the fecal energy, or the amount of energy that he's just pooped out in your pasture, and that is what he has digested. And the digestible energy is what we're interested in feeding our horse, because we know that there's going to be wastage. It just happens there's nobody with perfect conversion abilities. So we need to know what the gross energy of the feeds that we are eating are. We have to take out what energy they're pooping out in the pasture, and that is the amount of energy that they're keeping in the body to use for those life systems. Alright, so then energy balance is very important. We need to know how much energy to feed our horse. Well, the way to get an idea for this is by using energy balance. If your horse is in a negative energy balance, he's losing weight, so he obviously needs more. If your horse is in a zero energy balance, he's maintaining and looks good. If they're in a positive energy balance, then they're storing that energy for later in the form of fat. Now the pictures over here give you a little bit of an idea of the different energy balances that they have. The other way to measure this is with a body condition scoring system. We're going to get into that later in the semester, but body condition scoring is very important for maintaining your horse's health and to help you with your nutrition program. So one of the first sources of energy that a horse has available to them is fat. Fat is the most energy dense nutrient. Okay, it's 2.25 times more energy dense than a carbohydrate at the same weight of 1 gram. Okay, so if you have 1 gram of carbohydrates and 1 gram of fat, you're going to get 2.25 times more energy out of the fat than you will the carbohydrate. Now, fat is also needed in the diet for different things. It is a solvent for certain vitamins. We all know about the fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. If you don't have fat in the body, then the horse cannot absorb those vitamins and then be able to use them in bodily functions. Fat also increases the palatability of feeds. I know you and I probably wouldn't think about it, but if just adding a little bit of corn oil to a grain that doesn't have much molasses or anything, or maybe it's just oats and your horse is just not really wanting to eat it, put a little bit of corn oil on there and they're going to lap it up. They really like fat. Okay. Fat is a source of essential fatty acids. Without these essential fatty acids, there are repercussions in the body, and we'll get into that in a couple of slides here. It also decreases the dustiness of a feed. Say you've got a pelleted feed that doesn't have a whole lot of moisture in it, and it ends up turning into basically a fine powder. Well, when your horse eats these fine powders, it is really hard on his hindgut. They ferment it fast. It can lead to founder. So adding a little bit of fat will decrease the dustiness, make it a little easier for the horse to digest without the unwanted risk of foundering your horse. Fat is also used in the pelleting of feeds as a lubricant, so that it will slide through the little the dies that cut the feed into and press them into the pellets. Okay. Fat is needed in the diet, again, for the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, for the energy, which is where the essential fatty acids come from, too. Reproductive health and healthy skin and coat. Okay, now everybody's heard of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, right? Those come from fat, and those are essential for a healthy skin and coat. They also help in the inflammation process in different systems in your body. So fat is very important in the diet. There are two different types of fats. There are unsaturated fats and the saturated fats. So the picture of the oil there is corn oil. That is an unsaturated fat. It's usually a liquid at room temperature and has a really low boiling point. Now the other picture is basically lard, animal fat. And it is a solid at room temperature, and it takes a lot more to get it to boil because it has to turn to a liquid first. Fat is unique in that it has a problem with going rancid or rancidity. If your fat is rancid, it's going to have a foul odor. It's going to have it's going to look different, like there might be black things swimming around in your oil or whatnot. If your corn oil or your fat that you're feeding your horse has any odor or any of these particles floating in it or whatnot, don't use it. It's going to harm your horse. It will make them very, very sick. So you need to be careful that your fat is stored in room temperature place at all times, that it's not allowed to get too hot, it's not allowed to get mixed in with dust or anything like that, which will make it turn rancid. So if we have a deficiency of any of the essential fatty acids, omega-3, omega-6, and there's a whole bunch of others, you're going to have a dull hair coat, you're going to have a dry hair coat, and the difference between those is dull is it's not going to be shiny, dry is it's going to be really brittle. You're going to have decreased growth because fat is energy needed for the growth of the body. You'll have dandruff, you'll have decreased reproductivity because those essential fatty acids are needed for the hormones in reproduction. However, if you have an excess of fat, you're going to lead to obesity because they're not going to be able to use all that energy, so they'll store it for later. They'll store it in the form of fat under the skin. Now, a small layer of fat is good for the horse. They need it for insulation from the heat, insulation from the cold, to be used as an energy source if they happen to go into a negative balance after a workout. A little layer of fat is good. However, a lot of fat is not. Another thing that can be a cause of excess fat is that your horse may be quote-unquote hot. He's got a really energetic attitude. He's not wanting to cooperate. He's getting edgy in his stall or paddock or whatever it is. It's because he's got too much energy and he doesn't have anywhere to put it. So if you're not working off as much fat as you're putting into him, basically, you're going to have these kind of problems. Carbohydrates are the next energy source for the horse. This is the primary energy source in the horse, mostly because it's most readily available to the horse. Okay, there are three different types of carbohydrates. There are monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. And basically this refers to how many carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen rings there are in your carbohydrate. Again, carbohydrate is made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, which is why I will abbreviate it as CHOs. And monosaccharide is basically one ring, disaccharide is two, and poly is many. Okay. Carbohydrates are digested in the cecum and the large intestine. They are converted then to volatile fatty acids, or VFAs, and this is an energy source for the horse. Okay. Now there are different forms of the carbohydrates as well, and starch and cellulose are the two major forms. Okay. With starches, they are found in fresh grass leaves, good quality grass legume, hay leaves, alfalfa leaves, grass leaves, and then in the kernel of your grains. Okay, they're very, very easily digestible. It is a very quick energy source because they are fermented rapidly. However, if feeding too much of these will lead to problems. If you feed your horse a lot of starch, and because it is fermented rapidly in the hindgut, that can lead to laminitis, okay, or founder. So you want to make sure that you don't feed only starches to your horse, even though it is a good energy source. The other form, cellulose, is found in the grass and legume stems, poor quality hay, straw, and the hulls of your grains. It is not as easily digestible. It will maintain the GI tract and keeping everything flowing. As long as you have, cellulose is also fiber, just another word for it. And as long as you have a lot of fiber in your diet, the horse's guts are going to keep moving. Now the other thing that they need to keep those guts moving is water. So as long as they have free choice water and enough fiber in their diet, you should be relatively risk-free of colic. Now having said that, there are lots of things that can cause colic, but this is one of the things that can help you make sure that you prevent it. Cellulose is a great energy source because it is not as quick as the starch to burn. It is fermented slowly, producing those volatile fatty acids for the energy for the horse to use, but it also produces heat when it is fermented. And what happens is that this heat heats your body temperature up from the inside out. So in the wintertime, it is a great idea to feed a high fiber, high cellulose hay, in addition to your good quality hay and grains, because this will help keep your horse warm in the cold weather. Okay, now the volatile fatty acids are acetate, propionate, and butyrate. These are very, very important because they are one of the main sources of energy for your horse. And without those, your horse is going to have decreased performance. He's going to be a little lethargic. He's going to lose weight. So you definitely need to make sure that you have enough forage or fiber in the horse's diet. Moving on to proteins. Proteins are made of amino acids. They're the little bitty blocks that make up your proteins. Okay, and there are about 25 amino acids that make up all of the proteins in your horse's body. Now there are two different kinds of amino acids. There are essential and non-essential. Essential amino acids are the ones that have to be supplied in the diet every day. The horse cannot synthesize these. That is a test question. The essential amino acids have to be supplied in the diet every day because the horse cannot synthesize them. Now then, the non-essential amino acids are synthesized by the horse out of the essential amino acids that are fed in the diet. So they're not needed in the diet because the horse is going to make them out of what you're giving him. Okay. Proteins are needed for the structure of the horse and for energy, and the structure being the muscles. And proteins can be found in muscles, organs, hormones, blood cells, enzymes, hoof, hair, hide, antibodies, carrier proteins. All of those things contain proteins. So it is very important to make sure that your protein requirement is balanced for your horse, or there are going to be some things that just don't work as well because he is deficient in anything. Again, they have to be balanced. Now, there is one amino acid, it is an essential amino acid, that is called first limiting. And what this means is that if you do not have enough of that particular amino acid, then the body is not able to build the other amino acids that it needs. So the first limiting amino acid in a horse's diet is lysine, and it is the absolute most important amino acid you will find in your horse's diet. Most feed bags will tell you how much lysine is in your horse's feed. Okay, it is that important. Now here's the thing with lysine. So say you have an amino acid that is built out of methionine, arginine, lysine, methionine, arginine, lysine. Okay, but there's another amino acid that is built methionine, arginine, lysine, and then tryptophan. Okay, neither one of those bigger proteins are going to be built because there's not enough lysine in there. It's going to stop right there until it gets enough lysine to go ahead and build. I hope that makes sense to you all. So proteins are found in legumes, grasses, canola oil, fish and meat meal, milk products. All of those things are very high quality proteins. Okay, legumes are one of the highest forages that contain proteins. Grasses not quite as much. Canola oil, not a whole lot. Fish and meat meal have a lot of protein in them, and milk by far has the highest quality proteins in it. I guess that's why Mother Nature made it that we all drink milk in the first few years of our life, or in the horse's case, the first few months. Okay, so when you feed high quality versus low quality, the difference in these are going to be the number and the quality of the amino acids. Okay, so a low quality feed is not going to have as much lysine in it as a high quality feed. And again, we're going to go back to where then if lysine is needed in the chain to make a protein, production stops until it gets enough lysine in the diet to provide for that. So the requirements of the protein requirements in the horse can depend on the amount of diet consumed. So is there any wastage? You know, if you're feeding your horse 15 pounds of hay every day, but you go out to the pasture and he's walked around and pooped in 3 pounds of it, he's only going to get the 12 pounds. The digestibility of the proteins. This is going to be how easily digestible is the protein. Does the horse really have to work at it? Is he going to poop some of them out? So you need to know how digestible your feed is in order to know how much protein he's going to need. The individual's need. This is going to be based on, is he a performance horse? Is he a growing baby? Is he a broodmare? Is he a stallion? Any of those types of things are going to make the requirements of your horse different. Now the quality of the protein, again, is whether or not there's enough lysine, methionine, arginine, any of those essential amino acids in it. So if you have a low quality protein, it's probably not going to be high in those essential amino acids. Now protein requirement is tied to the energy requirements, in that if you increase the energy requirement of your horse, he's also going to have an increased need for amino acids. Mostly this is going to be seen in like your performance horses, okay? If you've got a cutting horse that's in heavy training and going to shows every weekend, his energy requirement is going to be really high because he needs to be able to do the work. But he's also going to need those amino acids in order to make his muscles function, heart function, all of those types of things in order to work as well. So if you increase your energy, you have to increase the amino acid requirement as well. So if you're feeding a low quality protein, these are some things you're going to see in your horse. You're going to see, well, decreased utilization, energy utilization, which means you're going to be putting the energy into this horse, but he's not going to be able to use it as well because he doesn't have those amino acids in order to make energy utilization efficient. You're going to see decreased performance because of this, because he is not going to have as much energy if he's not able to make those proteins where he can use the energy. You'll have low feed conversion efficiency. And this is an economic issue as well as a performance issue. So you're going to be pouring feed into this horse, spending lots of money on the feed, and he's not going to be able to convert it to muscle or energy, and he's going to poop most of it out, thereby pooping out most of your money. Okay, proteins can be damaged by processing, and the thing you need to watch with this is that overheating is the big one. It will damage all of your amino acids, and it'll especially damage your lysine. Lysine is kind of a fragile amino acid. So you want to be careful what kind of feeds you're getting as far as how it's processed. If you have a deficiency in proteins, you're going to see that your horse is going to have stunted growth if he's a baby, probably weight loss, decreased performance, most definitely, rough hair coat, decreased hoof growth. All of this because the proteins are needed for all of those functions.